So, what we are doing tonight, I hope, I intend to be somewhat fun, not just an information blurting session. I want you to enjoy it. I want you to have information given to you, but I want you to interact with one another. And I want you to not just see this as a meeting. This is a get together, get to know yourself, get to know the people around you, and hopefully at the end you'll see the point of it all, hopefully even before then. So what we're going to look at tonight is something that not only we are looking into, but the denomination as a whole. So what we're going to look at is something called the six working geniuses, and it's a book, and I'll tell you about that at the end. It came to me from Tony and Steph Barnhart, who are leading a Camp Grove up there, and I read the book and went through it and found it informative and helpful, and just want to give it to you guys as a tool we can use in our toolbox to help the church grow. And just so you know, other people in the denomination have already done this. I know that Tyler did with the Board of Education, maybe, and River of Life just did this last month with about 18 people. So we're not the only ones doing it, and I just found value in it, and I agree with Tony. I think it would be good. So hopefully, as a denomination, we can even talk about it in a useful way. You wouldn't have to do it this way. I read the book first, and then after I read the book, there was an assessment test, which you guys are going to take. The reason I'm doing it this way is because I don't want you to go into the test with any preconceived bait or notions about what it is. I don't want you thinking about, well, I think I'm this. I want you to answer the questions without any input other than your significant others or the other people in this room. Ladies, the reason that I didn't have you take it tonight, and I appreciate you all coming and putting the effort in, is because the test costs $25 each for each person that takes it. Thankfully, the denomination is paying for it, but I was trying to be considerate to them. At some point in the future, based on the value we see in this, I would like to take the ministry team leaders through it. So I imagine that all of you eventually will be taking this as well, because I think all of you lead some type of ministry in the church. And I didn't find out till about today, but the denomination actually has money set aside for this, and so I could have asked for more, so my apologies, that's on me. But I hope you see value in this, and in the future we can get this something that you can use as well. So, that said, everyone has a computer. Click where it says what language you want. I assume most of you want English, but maybe not all of you.
I want Deutsch.
If the mouse is not working, just click the center button. It'll activate it. They fall asleep after.
You should come to a page where you have to put in an email address, your name and email address. You need to put in an email address that you can access tonight, not your junk email, because you need to forward. The results will be sent to you as soon as it's done, and Becky's going to print them out so you both can sit and look at them. So you need to put an email in that you can get to tonight and forward it to my wife.
What if I can't get to it tonight? Because I'm not going to
You're
get
fired.
this tonight. It's not going to happen. Because I have no idea what my password is.
Is it on your phone? Your
No,
email?
it doesn't. I can't use my phone for my email. It doesn't work.
Smart.
So, sorry.
Which one?
I get it at home and at work, but I can't do it on my phone. So, sorry.
This is what I had you do.
Guess you're stopping by work.
She wouldn't have helped anyway.
I was gonna say, could Ellen send
I'm thinking about it.
Why don't you just put,
I got you to help me.
Mark, why don't you just put Bruce's email address in?
Actually.
Good.
Or put my wife's
I didn't read the book.
office at, are you going to the office
Yes.
address?
No, my
talking to
Yahoo.
us about it too.
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested in.
1420 at yahoo.com.
It'll say, oh,
I
you
love
already
it,
used
why we
especially
invited
businesses
you.
and things
Right.
like that. Yes, yeah.
This is on.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to select helpful content?
So just hit confirm. Okay.
Yes, allow account owner to share your assessment. That's Tony. Tony Barnhart.
We want that.
We want that.
I don't know if I want that.
You don't necessarily need helpful content from Working Genius. They're just going to send you select no.
We actually did it when we were dating.
This one?
Continue.
No,
Or just
we did
like a assessment?
You need to
Okay.
like a personality.
I need you, babe.
What do you need?
Okay. Let me know when everyone's
was
to
asking
the
him.
instruction
You
page.
know why. Say that.
Yeah, I'm afraid that would happen.
Alright.
Yeah, let me use it back.
Yeah,
She already did.
yeah.
Was
Becky,
that
another email address.
So you don't use
I don't know.
So this
if we
is
would
mouse.
need, yeah, but we.
That's
Um,
the first name.
Yeah.
But you already did it.
We
I
knew
did,
each
but I
other
have
for
3
a while.
emails. I'm trying to think which one I
So we knew about
use.
No,
Ask the
have to start
Baruch.
typing.
then maybe for some people.
Throwing over, just ignore this. I'm not using this anymore.
We did. Okay.
No, you're not signing. No, you're just typing your name.
Oh, okay.
You have to just type.
I think I
Right
would like
here.
to take that sometime.
Yeah.
No,
I don't know which one is best.
Now you're using
I
the
find
keys.
there's lots of freedom.
Okay.
They're always like,
Yeah,
good one.
right.
And then my sister got them to talk
It's so much of it.
Yes, we did.
Which actually
Coach did, yes, it was.
Do you have an email address you can access tonight?
And it was interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, what is it?
How do you get
And
to
they
the
said,
Warren?
if you do
Oh, yeah, they're downstairs again
Comcast.net.
like your number, then you probably already
Yeah, I
have a
didn't know
number
you
or
were gonna
something.
be
I
there.
forget what number anymore that I was.
I only got home this morning at 2:30.
And this girl was like,
So,
oh, that's
yeah.
totally me. And she's like, she was so worried.
They kept getting delayed and delayed after
And she was worried she wouldn't get to
Reading
see
it
it.
now.
Because I was a certain number up until the, like the
Yeah, I
last
left
two questions that were like.
Monday morning for Florida to sail down there on
This can be
Tuesday.
tricky because it kind of.
Flew home last
Yeah.
night.
Yes,
It's supposed to
And
leave
so
at
then it, then one was the
7:15,
one that I was
ended up
like,
leaving at like
wow. I did not.
9:15, 9:30.
There was that person.
Right.
And you probably don't like, because you don't like it. I'm like,
Alright.
I don't know.
So,
Yep, just.
just briefly, the instructions are pretty self-explanatory. You're gonna go through about 35 questions, maybe 40, I'm not sure how many it was. You're using the scale to indicate how much each statement applies to you. So, and then you see the scale at the bottom. Oh no, this definitely is not me. Sometimes this describes me. Oh yeah, definitely it is me. Now, as you take this test, what I want you to think about is how it relates view this from the perspective of how you do work. I don't mean specifically your job, but if you work at home, if you work at church, if you work at work, how does that statement describe how you view work? And if you get stuck in that, the second way to view it is, does it bring you joy? So, in the sense that I can do this, but I don't enjoy it, that would probably be a middle thing. Or, I can do this, but I absolutely hate it, then no, it doesn't describe me at all. That type of thing, okay? So how it describes the way you work and what brings you joy are the two things that you want to keep in mind as you take this. The reason you brought your spouse along is because they recommend that your spouse be there with you, someone that knows you well. Even you guys, because you know each other well, can speak into it. And I'm gonna walk around too, because we know each other. So if someone across the room hears Mike saying that, oh yeah, I can do that, and you think, no, he can't do that, say something, right? Because it's very hard sometimes to self-assess. And we think we're good at things we're not. So when I had taken the test, my wife made some faces sometimes when I said, yeah, sometimes, and she's like, no. And so I changed my answer. She took the test and she was gonna say no to just about everything. I'm like, babe, you're actually pretty good at that. She wasn't gonna say no to everything, but there was one thing in particular where she said, no, I can't do that. And I said, actually, you do that for me quite a bit. And so she moved her answer to sometimes. And so you're here to speak into each other as they take the test, and you speak into other people in the room too, okay? And go. It's okay to ask questions.
You need to go there.
Now you wanna go over it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
on your left.
Yes.
I could go back there.
Can you see?
We're talking about two different things of work. One how he works at church, one how he works at home. It's not the same all the time. I would put it in the middle.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
of things along with.
Typically you're right though.
I know, yeah. It's just
No.
Yeah,
Depends if you're.
No, yeah, definitely.
I think the key to that is the second one.
Yeah, right,
I would.
right.
See.
Sometimes their terms aren't what they say.
Oh, wait, that's
Or
different.
rest of the board here, I can't help but come up
Like,
with
is there anything higher than that?
original ideas, even when it's not necessary. Okay,
Middle or no.
Is there anything higher than, oh, yeah, definitely there?
That's not so good, yeah.
yeah.
Can't help it come up with an original idea.
Four.
Yeah.
I guess.
How do I know what fulfillment other people get? I can't
Done.
assume that.
This one?
Yeah, we're on your own there. I don't know.
Can you read that? It's okay, it's okay.
No,
All right, you're good with
that's how
those?
other people feel. I don't. I don't see questions like that.
Yeah, I get more satisfaction and fulfillment than most people from saying
There's only 5 questions?
no, you have to hit
All right,
next.
there's 5 per page.
I did, but I don't go.
Tell me that, Brad.
Are you switching it to this one?
Now I was thinking, okay, there it goes.
Okay. Oh, next. Hold on, yep, it's thinking. All right, there you go. Number 6.
The scale of 1 to 5.
You answer number 6.
Understand and active and then people get involved in support projects or ideas.
People who know me would say I naturally respond to the needs of others and on their time.
Here, stop innovating.
Others,
Oh,
others know.
yes. Oh, then I believe yes.
I would do this one.
This
Yeah.
one.
Very helpful and Now it's number 7 here. This one here. So here, I'm gonna say I have that here, that's it, involved in.
I was thinking something higher than, oh, yeah, definitely.
Sometimes, okay. So people say I can't stop innovating. Propose new ideas. No, so, yeah, okay, so I think,
Yeah.
much more capable than most people using my gut instincts.
It's kind of a wash here.
I have a lot of information.
Others
I have a good gut about it.
Yeah, I say that, like others you'd say.
The whole experience.
Yeah.
Well,
That could take all night to start doing that.
So I'm particularly bothered by seeing unmet potential in people in my environment. You get bothered when you don't get bothered, so definitely not. So you're not bothered, yep, so oh no, alright. Compared to others, I want the tasks that I work on to clearly define the standards.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I want tasks to have
Do the boat float down the river.
I can't help but thought it
I would say this one. See, did you see her face? She's up here going, absolutely.
Get in the minds of other people.
That's why she's here. Go.
what?
You answer that.
Should have a video on the
I'm
wife's
helping you
face.
with the mouse here, so, alright. It's not a touch screen, so I'm helping you with the mouse.
Okay.
But you can still point, that's fine. So number 12, I find helping people to be more deeply fulfilling than others do.
You should have a higher one than that.
Yeah. I'm gonna go this one.
For this question here,
Oh, I'm up
No,
there,
I mean,
fine.
yes,
Yeah.
to not yes to that.
Yeah, this is the middle one.
sometimes, okay.
I have.
Here, I often start thinking about my next new idea before my last one is developed. So before that one's finished, do you think ahead?
Not necessarily.
Deniable ability,
Yep, that one. So number 14, say that I have a great job at dividing and labeling insightful advice.
I've done a lot of those.
Okay. I like
When I think about it, I think about years.
important that you know your nose and yes.
Okay, 15, I can't help but prod and convince others through something that I believe in.
Extremely one way.
What?
I mean,
It's definitely-
somewhat.
Yeah, I'm finding that.
So you can convince people.
That's it.
I can try.
You're extreme about
Yeah, like service, I would say, yeah. Hospitality, like, I taught a lot of women growing. I guess I'm going in the middle, because one yes and one no. We're going middle of the road on a lot of these.
Sound do questions like.
We're, assistants are asking us to get reminded of other people. That, no, that's impossible. I don't like that.
I would say if it's a new idea.
Him,
you-
We're talking about
What?
other
Sorry.
people.
Tell you, 16.
16, yeah,
No, 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 you're not here.
others would say I'm
These
relentless
professors
in my
are
intention.
I spend more time than most
Use
people.
detail.
I'm not reminded.
Like, you're not behind everyone.
Relentless in your attention to detail, like detail
Yeah.
and completion of goals.
Completion is goal set.
So I guess, I don't know.
How would I know how other people
Yeah.
are sitting around contemplating?
But I need
How do you know that?
Yeah, so that's why I would do
I'm not
sometimes.
thinking during the day, I'm contemplating. Like, I have no way of knowing that.
Because it's just
I don't-
so
my mind doesn't work like that, that's why I don't do
It's more like if there's a new idea.
You have to answer that.
would be pretty good
I can't answer that for
Reflecting on the
like.
conflicts and problems that grow around us.
This is sad.
Again, this
Spend a
comes
lot of
back
time
to-
reflecting on problems around.
Question.
Not if I don't.
Others would say, I
No,
feel
definitely not.
Do you think that means any new idea or the new idea that you find value in?
I'd
You know what I
rather
mean?
leave it on
In
done.
explicitly.
Things that you like.
You know what I mean? Yeah, because like I would say he's not like behind every new idea that's out there, but if he finds value in it, he's good about
Thank you.
Mercy called on herself.
Yeah, send me an SOS.
She did. Oh, I was at a texter this afternoon and be like, I don't know.
Well, I was doing.
19, I get energy when I have to create something new out of nothing. Do you like to create something new out of nothing? I think so.
We're almost done.
Oh, you're.
They have.
Okay, 20. Responsive and helpful person. I would say, yes, definitely.
Yeah, go.
Yep. You gather people around for new ideas.
Yeah.
What's that? Do?
You don't sit around and do it.
22. I rarely miss a deadline or target and couldn't imagine letting it happen. When you have a deadline,
Pretty well. Know where we're gonna end up.
miss it? Yeah, your deadline. You miss it. So I rarely miss,
Well,
so.
once we have it all together.
Usually I have too much trouble just.
All right, so 23.
Oh,
I have a unique and undeniable ability to
Well, I will write things down as I usually list.
Service
Yeah.
the ability to identify.
Not like uniquely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
But are you the essence of the town? Like, what's your strength over other,
like how would you
and you don't have.
Yeah,
Like
that's-
it's your strength, and in this area.
Okay, 24.
Would have, the other people would be weaker, so they want to the church maybe
It depends what you're asking
Would
about.
you
We're gonna do.
contemplate or think about
But yeah.
opportunities longer than most would? You do, okay.
Really
25.
doing.
Service and hospitality are a big part of my
Oh my God.
Right.
Oh, no, wait.
Others consider.
I would notice this.
Somewhat, I would say service and hospitality.
Where?
I think about it.
Walk down the middle of.
Maybe sometimes.
26.
I would say you're like.
Yeah.
Is that yours up there?
You make, wait,
No, no piensa. Es tanto tiempo de llevar a
I don't want to hear.
I like it. I took my computer back down.
No, it's right here.
Pero qué pensé.
I'd say
Oh, the login on that thing.
Hey Scott, caregiving features.
Yeah, I'm on
Oh.
6 right
One
now.
coming
I told him I was like, I better be cute.
Question
Keep quiet and I
Alright, well,
stuck.
it needs.
I was gonna say, I took that to heart at the beginning where I said, don't put too much thought into it, so if I could decide one of the ends, it's like middle,
If
middle,
you're only in
middle.
question 6, there's
C and D are always the best answers.
Gotta go this way, somewhat.
Okay.
D always goes.
28.
I can help.
See you later.
In your.
Yeah. I would not.
You're excited about something when everybody else is excited about.
That's a no.
Is that a, something, yeah, that's what I see, yeah, definitely.
See that one.
How we doing?
Enjoy. Like the question when what I'm doing better.
You know other people. Father Fed told me.
What would I
Yeah.
be?
Right, I get it, but we're trying to see how accurate his view of
That
himself
one, yeah,
is.
so on 30.
So if he thinks I do this all the time, but everyone else does it more than him, he doesn't do it
Yeah, it
that
feels
much.
like they almost ask you a little
You
bit.
want that one or that one?
That's to try and get you like an idea.
All right, Mark.
Thanks.
Yeah, Bruce is gonna, you're not done yet, but Bruce is gonna help you.
Tyler, you gotta help me.
I'm gonna help you.
Oh, Bruce.
People who know me tell me I often get lost.
Yeah, definitely.
I have
Anything else? Yeah.
Compared to most people, I really enjoy driving a project to final
got a lot of
completion.
information, you're able to decide whether to go or not.
And then bring in a speaker.
If we see this room, how we say that.
Sometimes, somewhat.
Sometimes.
What do you think?
Compared to most others, I'm good at recruiting people to get involved and pushing and starting.
Doing everything.
People say I have an uncanny ability to assess and evaluate my ideas even without a lot of information. I find myself asking why things are the way they are more than most
Things that I think struggle with galvanizing.
I feel like I'm the first person that people ask to volunteer and say, no, I say most of them say yes.
Yeah. Basically, whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
Being original and creative thinker is a big part of my identity.
Which address?
Basically, I went to la cámara.
In there, 1420 at Yahoo.
Somewhat.
When momentum and progress slow down, I enjoy being the one to re-energize people and push them forward.
You need to do this too?
I've done this before.
Oh, yeah.
You're saying no, okay.
So I listened to a bunch of his podcasts.
Yeah.
I actually first heard about it with Greg Rochelle was interviewing.
Which of the
So
following
when I first
activities
heard
gives you
about
more
it, and
joy
then later
and
Tony was talking
fulfillment?
about it.
Convincing and provoking people to do
Oh,
something
so
that
then
they
you fail this
during
test,
the
you have to
project.
And then like after that, I kind of like
Sure.
Mine said you gotta read 2 weeks. There's no way you're
Yeah, then we
There's no way you're perfect.
Well, he's all very.
There's no way you can
We had a lot of
ace
middle,
every one.
a lot of tenacity.
1, 4, 2,
There was
0.
3 of us that were. Tony was Wonder and Galvin.
So that gives you 2 different.
So
At
you have.
yahoo.com. All right, now we
So
need to
you
go to
have,
your
so
email.
there's 6. So you have 2 that are your geniuses, like your most confident, your
Oh, wait, to know what your website is on.
you need to do competency, which is in between. So you can do it, you don't really
create it.
I don't know,
a lot, but
sometimes I
you
think
can
it's
do it, you can
Email
do
from the-
confidence.
You need to create it.
And then 2 that are your.
I would use one of those
Don't like
email
doing it all.
things to send it out.
No, but the email
There's
is
always,
coming to
there's
you.
always that.
It comes to your email, no.
Yeah.
Send your personal
Okay,
email.
I came right
Ah, bueno.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trabajando se queda.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah, get his email.
Sometimes I would just, if it's busy, it's like I'm not stressing to get out of here.
Bruce, are we creating an account?
No, you just need to go to your email.
Yep.
And forward the email that you got to Becky.
Forward, include this.
This is gonna be much longer, so you're. I can wait, I guess.
We're almost done.
Well,
You did this.
I did, yeah.
I mean, with trucking, there's
Pensamiento.
a lot of heads. And this time of year, like leading up to Thanksgiving and Christmas for a while, we go out of food. So we're always, there's always an increase.
Do it now?
Did they put it in your pocket?
Creatividad.
Forward your email to
Esa
Becky.
necesidad.
We are awfully busy in like, certainly late October.
Yeah.
And then our slowest time always is like,
Genera entusiasmo.
for whatever reason, people won't stop eating, but there seems to be less push to get things. And it's a lot of
Se compromete a asegurar que le dé
Russian
su
stuff. It's a lot of
Pensamiento.
produce baskets.
Pensamiento y creatividad.
Whatever it is, but it's always.
1420.
Naturalmente diseñado.
So it's hard to say. We'll see what happens after Christmas here, if things really.
1420 what?
At
It's
Yahoo.
been busier this last month than it had been. The previous, that's somewhat normal.
Should have brought my packet.
Your results.
Sure where it is exactly, it's down from.
So then my.
Okay, so working your frustration.
Yeah,
got it,
yeah.
okay.
Like if you go back.
You know, it says
Every year.
that's a problem.
Maybe a year, I'm not sure.
I think so, please, right.
So you're to get the
Okay.
same.
So that's right.
Tank up to get the gallons of oil, but
Yeah.
$60,000 bills.
Yeah, I don't usually.
Did he get to see it?
So that makes.
Yeah, he's looking, he forwarded it to me, so I would look at it.
Okay.
Oh, is that
nice.
good?
Yeah, that's, yes, no, sorry, so, no, I didn't take it, so the guys are taking it.
It helps a little.
I think you have to.
You don't know your
That's the
password.
best one.
So.
And he was just funny, I kind of would have seen this visual.
How do you get it?
We didn't get the.
Help them maybe.
Yes. It is nice to have someone else.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows
Yeah.
you.
Whoever
Well.
well.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you get in your account like, well, I'm like, yeah, but then I'm good.
Yeah.
How do you get in?
Yeah.
It gets passed on.
He has his computer memorizing his names.
I know. Can you get it on your phone?
That's what I do now.
It's a
Does your phone have it on?
I can see that.
Oh, yeah, he was.
I could totally see that. Oh, yeah. New ideas, trying to come
He's
up with
always-
something. Someone else left, something else.
Which is good. I'm
Yeah,
not saying
yeah.
that's bad. Like, it's a
Or, I
very
mean,
good
I will
thing.
already
Yeah.
That's what-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to get
But then
there.
galvanize another professor, which is like.
Anyone not forward that email to Becky?
I
did.
You're not excited about it? And like, yeah, so-
I did it.
I can totally see that. Yeah, these are good.
It is, we have quite a few guys that are, you know.
Yeah, I can totally see that.
Okay, I will be there Sunday, so I can set up Justin, so I was, yeah.
But then, do you have to pay for those?
Probably.
We'll send you the one around.
Send it to my email.
First one. That's one.
Yeah. I don't know if I like just issues sometimes, but like things are.
There's three
For whatever
emails.
you
So
needed.
Getting hurt or whatever, nice and everything.
Well, yeah, my email is gut check. Just gut check. That's my mother's.
Soundwave, yeah, they're employees.
Or on the other one.
You know that, you don't get rid of it.
You did. Oh, you're gonna get rid of it?
Yeah.
The password is gut shell.
Yeah.
It would.
I have that paper.
Well, now you're just saying, you don't have to cross your
Yeah, it would probably look
Yeah.
better.
We can paint it black.
It's like, yeah. We have.
That's my mother's.
Oh, you have?
We have a few black cabinets, we could probably.
Yeah, we need to work together one day and try to do it on the ride because I would love to do some shelves.
We let our drivers know.
We
It's
get
3 hours.
What do you think I need
But if we social media is when you know, because you know,
And to get our drivers.
that.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
It opens up a whole new world of.
But I had 3.
This don't work.
Nope.
Maybe it was just one.
Very strict.
Think about it.
We have a high bar.
I used that. Other.
Our insurance keeps on.
Hey, Tom, try my password. 518 T40 Victor Road. Try that as my name.
For what?
For my password.
We have water, somebody
Like,
wants.
240 Victor Road.
What do you want? Get out of this.
Somebody wants water.
Okay.
Water.
Oh, sure.
This thing.
It's not letting him get in, so
Somebody wants water.
240.
Yeah.
What?
240.
We probably could have been out of there by before 8, but we got to talk. We were eating, and so we got to talk. So good, good. That was really good for your daughter. Yeah, that's really great.
Oh,
Yeah. She a good student?
That don't work.
Yeah. What does she like best? Like what subject?
Hey, Becky or Bruce.
Is she musically inclined?
I think so, but she loved science.
Like 240.
And then she's like, make sure
She
that.
likes people. She likes people. Yeah, it's like mama.
Yeah.
I love people too, but this is more like
Sure.
Thrives on that, yeah.
yeah.
Try 240 Victor's Road in Dutch Elder.
I got it to the teenage.
Yeah.
She's the president of the
Oh, wow.
Email on your phone.
Oh, they have an NHS.
Yeah,
Have an email on your phone.
Yeah.
Not just.
Yeah. So she's applied for Huntsville March first. Good scholarship.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Frank Landmark, yeah.
She's
working on it.
Good.
I should get one password instead of half a dozen.
He can be, yes, yes.
Oh, goodness.
He can
All right, if you're done with the computer, you can shut it,
Adios, computador.
put it aside, so you're running the papers. We're gonna do that in just a moment when Brandon comes up. I'd like, wow, it's hot in here.
I just thought it is getting warm.
I wanna have Tyler come up and just say a word or two, which is all he has.
That's all I have.
Tyler, yeah, just come up, you had taken this assessment with the Board of Education, can you just tell me how, tell us how you, or how you found it useful?
Yeah, so like Bruce said, Board Christian Ed has taken this test. I'm a part of that. I feel like this is really useful for teams as far as what is your capability, what's your working genius, things you really enjoy doing, things that you're natural at doing, and things that you're not natural at doing, things you don't really enjoy doing. And seeing that, at least in me and other people, and being able to work together to build each other up, use your strengths to help other people's weaknesses. And then you can also help identify things as far as like for me, like there's some things like I know you didn't go through it yet, but like galvanizing is my weakness, and like that's like getting people like rallying people, getting people excited behind ideas, talking to people, stuff like that. So like me being able to identify that has helped me like, oh well, I need help in this area. This is something I don't enjoy doing. It's hard for me to do. So I'm okay. It makes it easier to identify it and to be like, hey, well, I need help in this area. And then stuff you have strengths in, easy to be like to kind of build that up and like work on that so you can help other people. No, that's what we say. Yeah, that's fine.
Tyler gave you a short version of what I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
Next.
All right. Yeah, I'm not an expert on the subject, but I listen to a bunch of podcasts on it.
You're still more of an expert than I am. Brandon, is this yours? Or one of the guys that works? It's an old rain kid. Was in my basement. Thought maybe the guy left it down there when he fixed my.
Maybe I can make that.
I didn't know if it was mine. I don't remember having one.
There's a green, so that's for an air conditioner?
If not, you can take it off my UV light that I'm gonna order soon. All right, so Kevin Eshelman from ECC talks about second voice. That's why I was happy to have Tyler come and talk about this. He says he can preach something over and over and over again in front of his congregation, and then when someone else comes in and says it from the outside, people come up to him all the time and they're like, "That's amazing! I've never heard that before." He's like, "I've been preaching this for however long." So it's always nice to have a second voice. You're not just listening to me or the same voice all the time. So thank you. You may go ahead.
I feel like I want to
nephews.
I feel like I want to stay though.
That's fine. You can.
I really enjoy this, like learning about it and just kind of like.
What did you look?
Huh?
What?
Tell Mercy, no.
Did she take it?
I don't think so. I do really think there's real benefit to this though, like being able to work together as a team. Not yeah, I'm talking again, sorry. Not just like business, but also like and also ministry, relationships. You can use it so dynamically in different areas. So I think that's just I'm leaving. It was pretty galvanizing, Tyler.
Yeah.
There you go.
That was good.
All right. Nick, did you email it to Becky?
Which email?
Big Inter 14, 20 something.
Did you get his?
20 something.
You get it? Is it Espanol? So give it to Raquel.
It didn't come through yet.
Is that right?
It had to go all the way.
Oh, really?
Translate it.
So
Had to go to Chile back.
you have a pen there if you want to take notes. I'd like you to go to page 1. I went back and forth about how to do this, if I wanted to show you the 15-minute video that we have here first, or if I wanted to kind of stop it and start talking to me and give you this. As a visual learner, I thought having this might help, but I don't want you turning ahead. I don't want you turning ahead.
I already did, I read the whole thing.
Well, that's fine, you can do it previous, but now I want us all on the same page.
Very more copies.
Becky, can you print 2 of Mickey's so Scott can see one, or maybe 3, so Warren can see one? Oh, is his in Spanish? Probably is.
Oh, you printed off here.
That's
why I don't
I'll
have
print
one.
someone else's.
Print someone else's.
Makes sense, never mind.
Because I haven't gotten Mickey's yet still, so.
You got it?
All right, so I just would like you to take page 1 yourself and read over it, so you familiarize yourself with what they're saying. And then we'll do it in the video.
I'm giving them yours.
Close enough.
They told me sent 1 minute ago.
Page 1.
I can see it.
Warren can read drawings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have it printed.
His wife's gonna mark it up and correct it. This is an Espanol. Good.
Miguel.
I got Miguel.
Yeah, Miguel, sí, es que they want to say the truth. Yeah.
Oh, yes, it's in Spanish.
You can read it.
It's a hot dog Jesus dogs. It's a hot dog. Gotcha.
Have you done anything with this?
I was speaker every year to go on, but I don't remember what the name is. My favorite song.
Now, if your work would ever do it, you could send this assessment to them. You know what I mean? Or if you're working with it, I'm not gonna have it. Is everyone done? Let's go. So we got a 15-minute video. I'm gonna stop at certain points and just interject some things, and we'll go over some different pages of your results, okay?
Those the Weaver kids making all that noise down
Be a working genius. I mean, don't you agree? Who doesn't want to bring their genius to work? So good work on that.
Exactly. And everybody has genius. The problem is some people don't get to use it.
That's right. Well, we're going to be talking about your new book. It just came out a couple days ago, and it's called Working Genius. And so I'm a little slow, though. So someone else had to point out to me that the 6 different profiles that you write about in your book are descriptive words that spell out the word widget. And this makes me think there may be a flaw in your assessment, since it indicates my genius is discernment. So anyone with discernment probably should have picked that up on their own, but I digress. So will you quickly kind of give us an overview of the 6 profiles?
Yes. So it's the book is the 6 types of working genius, and they are the 6 ways to get all work requires all 6 of these geniuses at some point. So here they are. I'll go very fast. The first one is the genius of wonder. People that like to ponder things, ask questions, notice things around them. They're looking for potential, and they're asking questions. That's a genius. It really is. And it's the beginning of every project or program or any endeavor. The next one is the genius of invention. That's a person who naturally gets joy and energy from coming up with new ideas and solutions. And I have this, you have this. We wake up in the morning like, oh, please let me invent something new. Sometimes it's not necessary, sometimes it is, but we do it naturally. It's a God-given gift, it's a talent. And so invention is next, solving the problem with some original thinking. The next one is called discernment. That's not discerning your vocation like people do in the religious world, but it's gut feel. It's instinct. It's like pattern recognition and just having really good intuition. Not data-driven or linear thinking, but more like, hey, I think I've seen this before, and I'm an integrative thinker. And so those kind of people have great judgment, which is just based on gut, and it's a real gift. The next one is galvanizing. Galvanizing is the gift of rallying the troops. Some people love to get people moving, inspire them, and remind them, and keep them going, and like, hey, let's get excited again. There are people that wake up in the morning and like, if I could only do that in my job, I'd be so happy. The next one is the genius of enablement, which sounds bad in the world of addiction, enabling somebody, but it's good to enable people to get things going. They respond to the galvanizer. They're like, please let me help. I love to help people realize their dreams. And I'll do whatever you need. There are people, and that is a gift. It's not just about being nice. And just because you're a follower of Jesus doesn't mean this is your genius, because it's not mine. And I feel guilty about it, but I'm not good at that. I still have to do it sometimes, but it's not a natural thing for me. Finally, the last genius is called the genius of tenacity, which is not just helping, but finishing things. There are people in the world, again, I cannot relate to them, who wake up in the morning and say, just let me finish things, let me cross things off a list, let me dog things and overcome obstacles. They're tenacious and they like to finish things. I, early in a process, lose interest in the finishing part and want to move on to the next stage. So sometimes I have to find people that are good at this, or I have to force myself to do it, or have somebody else force me to do it. So that's what they are: wonder, invention, discernment, galvanizing, enablement, and tenacity.
Yeah, that tenacity thing, I'm so thankful for Jacinta on our team because she brings the tenacity to our team. So, Pat.
Okay. So even in just that brief description of what this is, I want to ask the wives, can you tell what your husband is before you even look at his test? Or can you tell what he's not? Right? A lot of you are nodding. It's interesting that once you know it, you can see it. I just want to hit them one more time so we're clear on them. So in page 1, wonder is the person who asks why. Why are we doing this? What is this achieving? Is this the best way to do something? What's going to work better? What's going to put us on a better path? And then the invention guy comes in and says, I have this idea, and I have this idea, and I have this idea, and I have this idea. And a lot of times they have endless ideas, right? And so you have to figure out which idea is actually best to solve the problem. And that's where the person with discernment comes in, because not everyone who has ideas has discernment. Not everyone who wonders, is this the best way to do something, has discernment on what the next best step is to solve whatever question they're asking. And then once the discernment people say, you know what, this idea seems good to solve the problem that was asked. Now we need people to get on board. Now we need people to get people rallied behind the idea and let's get it done. And they get the enablers who come along and say, I want to do this. I want to respond to this need. I want to get it done. But not everyone who's an enabler or a helper is good at finishing things. So sometimes you need different people to come in. Now, a lot of you may have, and my wife is, an E and a T. So she's an enabler, a helper, and she's also a finisher. A lot of times those two go together. That's what hers is. I see that's what Mark's is. If that's accurate. Okay. So then there's people who come along and they want things finished. They've got to have it finished. So those are the 6 ways that work gets done. And you heard him, what I really want to point out is if you heard him just briefly there, he said he's an ID. So he's good at inventing things and then discerning which of his inventions are going to work best. But if you heard him, he said, I lose interest once I don't have an idea to create. Once the project moves past the D and people start actually having to do it, he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to finish it. He loses interest because he's already off to the next idea. And you probably know people like this, right? They don't ever finish anything. But that doesn't mean that they're not useful. They just have different talents and gifts, and we need to plug them in to the right places, right?
Have you heard, what I wonder when I look at this is, what percentage of people have what?
I don't know.
I know, me and Tony talked to me about this quite a bit, and I think he said that tenacity, a lot of people have that, or, it's like the worker bees, not everybody's the leader, but there's a lot of work. I just wonder if there's a percentage of how the other people fit in.
We'd love to know that, because I've talked to a lot of ETs. A lot of them. Steph is that way, Steph Warner, my wife is that way, and I see Mark is that way. I don't know, did anyone else come up with ET? No? Okay, well then maybe it's not as prevalent. But, yeah, it'd be good to know if there are rare ones.
I'd also wonder if I took it again, like next week, if I come up with something.
That would be interesting, and you're free to do that for $25. All right, so now I'd like you to turn to page 2, your results. Does anyone have any, is that clear? Is any of that unclear to anyone? You're free to disagree, we'll do the disagreement part later for Mike. But
Wow. This is not much.
Just forewarning, he's going to get it all night.
Next to me, he probably knows Mike best.
He's going to catch strays tonight.
Maybe better. Maybe better. I think he spends more time with Bruce.
Yes, and we're going to move on. So, moving on. All right, so let's go to page 2, and he's going to talk about that section there.
your book and the assessment help us identify our working genius, our working competency, and our working frustration. What's the difference between those three categories?
Well, it's a great question. As it turns out, everyone has 2 of these 6 things, only 2 that are their working genius. This is where they get joy and energy, and as a result, they're naturally good. It's a God-given gift. Now, I like to say that's like taking one of those thermoses. If you pour coffee into one of those and put the lid on it, it will hold its energy, its heat, for a long time. I mean, you can open it up 3 hours later and it'll burn you, And that's your working genius. It'll hold it. You can hold your energy. You can work for 12 hours in your area of genius and still be fired up and really excited. You're getting joy and energy from that. That's a working genius. Now, in the middle is your working competency. You're pretty good at it. It doesn't really feed you. You can do it for a while, but eventually you lose your steam. That's like pouring coffee into a cup at Starbucks and putting a lid on it. And it'll hold its energy for a while, but it'll eventually go cold. Well, your working frustration is the last 2. Those are the things that drain you of your energy. That's the coffee you pour into a cup and there's a little hole in the bottom and it just drains right out right away. It doesn't hold it at all. And each of us has 2 of these areas of genius that are our frustration, that we can't do them hardly at all without losing our steam. And they drain us of energy and joy, and we're usually not very good at them. And if we don't know what our geniuses, competencies, and frustrations are, it's really tough to properly steward the gifts God gives us in the work we do. And so those are the 3 different categories, and we all need to understand what they are.
Yeah, so I want to circle back.
Okay. So I'll be interested at the end. I'd like to do some more discussion once I've not taken too much of your time, and those who want to leave can leave. But what I found interesting about this, and I think what you heard Tyler say, is this came out extremely accurate for me. And Tyler felt the same way. And that was super helpful. I knew, because I read the book, that I was a W before my wife was sitting there going, I knew I had the W. What I didn't know is that I also had the T. So I'm at either end of the spectrum, okay? I love wondering what's the best way to get things done. And then I love finishing it. And here's the problem. There's all this stuff in the middle that needs done in order to get from point A to point E. And I often struggle to get there, especially because I don't have a lot of D. I have no D. D is on the bottom. So now I don't have a problem sitting around and saying, well, man, is this the best way to do this? How can we do this better? And I can even come up with an idea here or there, because that's a competency of mine. But discerning which of those ideas is best, I'm terrible at it. That's my wife. Terrible at it. And it's funny, if you're downstairs, there's an example in my office. I have whiteboards all over the place. I was going to bring it up here, but I forgot. On one of my whiteboards that's set up for how we're going to move the church forward. On the right-hand, left if you look at it, but right-hand side, I have why we need to move to an elder model. I have all the valid reasons from Scripture why we need to do that. And on the left, I have a task list of things that need done in order to get us there. But I have no idea how to connect it to it. And I sit there and I stare at the whiteboard and I'm frustrated. And when Tony and Steph told me about this, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm missing something that I need from other people on the team. And I don't know if you caught it, but he said right toward the end there, he said, it's tough for us to steward our gifts from God if we're unaware of what they are. And so what I was hoping by you guys seeing this is now you can look at it and say, these are my gifts. How can I step into these for the benefit of the church, but also in other areas of my life too. So you can help not only yourself, but by extension us, and then everyone else in your life that you ever work on a team with. Because you can look at it and go, okay, I can help in this area, but maybe we need help in this area. So I'm hoping that that's something that can come out of this, all right? If you want to go to page 10, the last page, just turn to the back. Oh, sorry, my last page. Should have it look like this. It has a map. Yep, that's the one. There you go. He's going to talk about that.
To those working competencies and working genius and working frustration, But before we do that, I can see how understanding my wiring is helpful to know where I can best leverage my strengths and abilities. But the Working Genius is not just for individuals, it's also for teams, am I right?
Oh,
Parenthood is a journey. Leadership makes decisions, especially when it comes to the time of
Yeah, when we first came up with this, it was by accident. I just wanted to figure out why I was grumpy at work a lot, even though I love the people I work with and I love my firm, and it was because I was doing things outside of my genius too often. And then though we looked at it and we categorized everybody else and we were like, oh my gosh, we have gaps, and we have people that are good at things and we're not actually asking them to do them. And we were relying on things like job titles. Like, well, that's your title. We're like, hey, forget about job titles. You're great at that. And that's what this is all about. It's really a productivity tool. And that's just as relevant for churches as anywhere else. In fact, I would say it's more relevant because what churches do is more important than other organizations. And productivity matters.
Absolutely.
Do you disagree? Some are nodding, some are frowning. But I think that's important. We need to look at this as a productivity tool. I'm not looking at this as going, this is an end-all be-all answer to everything we need. That's not how I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it as a tool we put in our toolbox to make us more productive as a church. And if we can leverage it and use it, then we need to do it, okay? So putting people in a place where they can succeed, not burn out, and have joy in what they're doing, that fires me up. Like, that's gonna make our church pretty fun to be at, I think.
Remember, you have to galvanize hard on Mike, so.
Right.
Keep going.
But what's interesting, if you look, so this map thing, and Tyler, if you look at the map, so this is a sample team that they put together. You can see that they have no one that has discernment on their team. So they have people who can ask why and come up with ideas, but they have no one who can discern whether or not the ideas are worth pursuing at all. That's a problem. They've got a gap. They've got a hole. That's something that we want to look to eliminate in the current teams we have, but also as we build new teams, make sure that we don't have gaps so that our teams are functioning well in the church. Yeah, and so Tony, because he's the arbitrator or whatever you want to say, he's the account owner for this. He bought all the tests. He got all the results. So I can call Tony up, and I think he may be able to make me an administrator, and I can move people around in different maps and see how to make a complete map. Who do we need in what area? And we could put our current teams in and say, are we lacking anything?
Then we can steal from other churches if they have people.
Right, exactly. We just have to find other churches that have done this. Well, River of Life has done it, so we could steal from them.
Never knew this in football.
No.
I don't know much about football.
Make a
You know
trade.
what they do? Trade.
Oh.
Well,
they would actually like to trade with us because in reality they
W
did.
and a D for.
Yeah, exactly. They did this last month, and I think he said they had 15 people take it in their church, and they had no W in none of them. So no one is sitting up at River of Life and asking, is this the best way to do these things? Are we being as effective as a church as we can? That's a problem, right? So if we have some W, they'd probably be willing to trade. Right. Go to page 7. Should look like this, Working Genius pairings. We're going to talk about that next. Don't read, look up here, we'll read after.
Yeah.
Got you.
Don't worry, it was already read.
Absolutely. Well, Pat, now that I have you cornered as a guest on today's podcast, I'm going to selfishly let you coach me a bit. Invention and discernment are my working genius. So how should that shape where I invest my time and how I lead my team?
Okay, so you and I share the same two, so we have the same pairing. And we have names for every pair. And you're what's called a discriminating ideator. What that means is, not only do you come up with new ideas, that's the invention part, but you're really good at evaluating, like, in real time, like, is that a good one or is that, so of the ideas you come up with, a pretty high percentage of them you've already thought through. Now there's other people, my wife is one of them, she's a wonder invention. So she's what's called a creative dreamer, Well, she just throws stuff out there, and her head's way up there in the clouds, and it's beautiful. But she then needs somebody to come along and discern whether or not that idea is workable, and maybe half of them are good, half of them aren't, and she's fine with that. You and I are particularly, it matters to us to not just come up with an idea, but we discern it in real time. And so our hit rate on those ideas is pretty good. But when I look at your results, the one thing you don't like is to galvanize.
Right.
And so like you're really good at coming up with an idea, but you're like, please don't make me sell this again and again and again. Please don't make me come in and remind people or try to provoke them to keep moving. Because that is one of the things that drive you, making people do things that they're not naturally inclined to do is one of your kryptonite.
Well, so
Right.
you met.
How many people in here think Scott's a G?
Get in, we're fired up.
But you see what I'm saying. You can even see that even without. He doesn't have his test done. Right? Well, he has it done. Someone else got it.
Can Tony see it?
No, because you sent it to the wrong email.
Yeah,
But Tony might be able to. Maybe.
That's what I'm saying.
Maybe
Tony
text
would
him. Maybe he can. Yeah, because that's
Well,
a good
that's
idea.
gonna be
And you're half done one too.
No, our needs having this.
You might get a bill.
Yeah.
So anyway, on this page then is the parents, like he was talking about. So these two guys both are IV, and he kind of told you what they are. I am a WT on the bottom. So we already talked about that. I want to know why we do something. I want to have a very good reason for doing it, and then I want to get it done. But everything in between, I'm going to need somebody else to help me, right? And so hopefully, as you look at your page 2 and what your 2 top ones are, as you can read the 2 here, and they match who you are, that it's pretty accurate. When I read this, it read my med. I mean, it was pretty much like, yeah, that's me. So I take some time and read yours, and I'm curious how many people find it accurate or not accurate.
This is in
This is
Spanish.
Spanish, so I have to translate something.
It's all in
I'm supposed to
You need the English version.
Well.
Yes, I knew that.
Yeah.
You knew that? I knew that.
I wonder what Mike's is.
Right? What is it, Mike?
I don't know, I'm just asking her if it fits. It
What
does?
are you?
What are you, Mike?
An IG, it says.
I just feel like, yeah.
You gotta take my pen. Well, you said you were gonna take it on the answer. No?
No, you tell me.
Infectious enthusiasm. Infectious.
Depends on his mood.
I've been told I infected people.
I mean, I think it works both ways for you. If you're amped up about something, yeah. But if you're not amped up about something, it also does that. Me and your wife.
Someone agreeing.
I don't like this.
That's what I mean,
I'm being
there's
ganged up on.
so many of these questions, it depended what area you're asking about.
Yes.
Because in certain areas, and in other areas, it's off the chart the other way. So I had difficulties guiding in sometimes in some of them.
Apparently you got it right.
Well,
If you don't think it's accurate, now that you know what it is, maybe you could retake it, but I wonder if that would affect your results now that you know what it is. I can't say that it would, because I knew it beforehand, and I think it came out pretty well. But you're always welcome to do that. Don't want a credit card number. I just think it helps us lead better as leaders in the church if we know what we are, we know our own strengths and weaknesses. And then if we can get other people and understand what theirs are, we can put people in positions to be productive. And that's exciting. And the fact that there might be less frustration. Not saying there's a lot of frustration in our church, but the more you can eliminate, I think the more productive you're gonna be.
So how do you plan to like integrate this with spiritual gifting?
I don't have that plan yet. So I might get a D to come along and help me with that. But it's very helpful to know yourself. For example, I have no E. I have no D, I have no E. So I'm not gonna be the person that comes along and says, all right, let's, I'm encouraging you, Scott knows this, right? Like Scott comes, we talk, and I'm like, just spit it out, Scott. Scott, you got enough time to beat around the bush, just spit it out. Right? I'm not an encourager. But if you recognize that, you can either A, work on it, or B, get some people around you so you don't alienate your whole team. So I need some E's. Right? And I need to work, yes. Let's say I'm never encouraging. It's also not my gifting to see. I would much rather go back and wonder, is this happening the right way? Before I would rather jump in and help. But if you guys got it so far and it's not getting done, then it's time to get done. And it's time to move on. I'm a very strange individual.
Amen to that.
You picked him.
All right, flip back to page 6. It should look not like that. That's 8.
6.
6? You're unique. Yeah. Not mine. I didn't print it.
Oh. Thank you for the money.
We'll read that and talk before we move on. Read that and tell me if it's accurate. See? That's him.
Yeah.
I love the wives' faces. I wish I could camera. What face did you get?
I
No, this was Yenny.
Oh.
I saw Yenny and Kara. I didn't see too much from them. She did good.
I agree.
What are you, Brian?
I'm a DT.
Oh, nice.
Anybody else a DT?
There we go.
Got some B going on. Gonna be calling you guys into the office.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Anyone disagree with their result? Does it not describe you?
Mention it, yeah, you're absolutely right, but you mentioned it, when it comes to working frustration, galvanizing and enablement are at the top of my list, and it seems like that genius, that you need that to lead a team and bring the best out of others. So here I am as a leader, I have these working frustrations of galvanizing and enablement. So I guess the question is, Coach, should I actually be leading the team, or am I in the wrong job?
The answer to that is this. No matter what your type is, you can lead an organization as long as you do two things. You know what your weaknesses are and you surround people who can fill the gaps in. Self-awareness is more important than what your type is. So here's...
Okay. Self-awareness is more important than what your type is. Especially because of our weaknesses. If we don't realize we have them, we're probably going to assume that we don't. So for example, I've already started implementing this with my wife. As we talked about, I don't have any D. And I recognized when she took the test, there were times when she spoke into my life for problems that I have, because I'll often go home and I don't really vent, but I tell her XYZ problem I'm having, and she'll make an offhanded comment, and I'm like, oh, that's not a terrible idea or solution. And so she was taking the test, and she was going, I don't think I can do that. I'm like, you do that more often than you think. And I recognize in her, now it's not one of her top ones, but it's a competency in her. So she's able to do it, even though it doesn't necessarily bring her life. So I've started going home and deliberately seeking out her input on certain issues. Right? And so you can see how it works once you have self-awareness. That's what he's talking about. Like, any of you, any of me, can lead a team as long as we know where we're weak and we surround ourselves with people who help in our weakness. We can also limit our frustrations with one another. If we're aware of who else. So for example, I'm a T. I want to get things done. Any of you who are not T's are going to irritate the crap out of me. Because you've either got ideas or you've got projects that are started and they don't get finished. Right? So now I can look at Mike, are you a T? And I can go, it frustrates me that you never finish anything. You're nodding? Or not? Oh, okay. Right? Or maybe not never. T might be a competency, so he does it once in a while. But you can start to see where you might actually be able to avoid frustrations you have with people that you love, and you don't want to be frustrated, right? Okay, moving on.
Here's the thing. For you, and I'm speaking to myself here to a large extent, Tony, is like your favorite meeting is like a brainstorming meeting or a strategy setting meeting. And so during those meetings, you're at your best, and your organization needs you, and that's great. You're at your best. Then you're implementing ideas, and you should go to those meetings, and you should be less inclined to jump in and take over, because what we tend to do is make every meeting about the things we're good at. And when you go to a meeting and you say, "Oh, this is a GT meeting, get things done, rally people to finish something," you're going to go to that meeting and you're going to say, "I'm going to sit here, I'm going to sit on my hands a little bit, and if you guys need me to do something, let me know, but I will not entertain the fun I like to do," because for years I would turn every meeting into a strategy session. And there are times where it's like, we don't need your ideas right now, we need your help in finishing. Now here's the deal, Tony. It's okay that sometimes you have to do enabling.
So I would say, as personal, all right, open the kimono, personal testimony time here. This has caused me frustration, and this really spoke to me. I already knew what Mick was before I walked in here, because we've spent enough time working together, right? And so I have W, and I know he's a W too, right? And I also know he's an I. So he's gonna have, as this guy said about his wife, he's gonna have his head in the clouds all the time. He's gonna wonder, how can I make this better? And he's gonna come up with constant ideas to make it better. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is the T in me says, okay, enough with the ideas. We're done with ideas now. We need to move to the next thing. And here's the other problem. I have no D. So now Mick comes to me all the time with ideas, new ideas, good ideas, bad ideas. I don't know because I have no D. So I can't now take him and say, Mick, that's a great idea. Let's move forward with that. I have no idea. I need someone else on the team helping me with that. And also, I can't say to Mick, that's a great idea, let's move forward with that, because he's not going to move forward with it. He's going to go back to his strengths, which are W and I, and think about what's the next problem I can solve. He said that in the beginning. He said, once the project gets so far, I have no interest in it anymore. Right? So once you start to understand these things, it helps you even in your interpersonal relationships. This cleared up so much of the frustration that I was feeling. Mick comes into every meeting with new ideas. And I don't know how to encourage that and not encourage it at the same time. Right? Because he has value, and his ideas are good, but I don't know which ones are good. And I can't help him. Right? So that's why you need every aspect of the team. Right? And it was great before Mick showed up. I was the only W. So I could sit with all my questions and answer them my way. Well, now somebody else wants to say, how do we do this better? And he wants to have answers. Well, I've got to allow for that. I can't just say, no, my way's better. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Okay. So this tool is one way that I hope will enable us to use one another better, essentially. That's a bad way to put it, but that's what I want us to do. I want us to use one another better. Not only do we better understand ourselves, but we better understand the person next to us, their strengths, their weaknesses, and we can actually say to them, because if we all have this understanding and we're all using the same language, we can say to each other without fear of offending, Mick, I don't need your eye right now. we're past the I, right? Or Bruce, we don't need your W right now. We're on the D, all right? You guys we can talk in the same terms, right? With better understanding. And then we can have real teamwork leaning on each other's strengths instead of frustrations because Mick's not getting done what I wanted to get done. Or whoever doesn't have T, right? So it can help us communicate through our frustrations better and work as a team. That's what excites me.
But don't make yourself do it a lot because you're not great at it. And it robs you from spending your time on the things you're best at. So this is not permission to abdicate things that you don't like. It's permission to do them as little as you can in service of your organization. Does that make sense?
It certainly does, and it really then speaks again to the strength of the team as a whole. We need everybody to bring their working genius for the team to have the greatest impact. Pat?
Right, so I could, like they said, I believe we can leverage this in our church. So like page 10, we can build our teams around the idea and then we can be more effective. It can help us see where we might be weak and make ourselves stronger.
Tell me if this rings true from your experience. Leaders many times, though, think they were just born to lead. And because of that, when they go to hire other people, they tend to look for those people that are wired just like themselves. And it seems like that could actually be a recipe for disaster in the long run.
It is a recipe for disaster. And in churches, this is so important because there can be no silos in a church. You know, people can't say, well, the worship or the music side of the church is not sinking, but the outreach is. It's like, no. If we're sinking, we're sinking. We're all in one boat. And if somebody has a natural God-given talent that would be well used in another part of the church, by all means, let them do that. That's God intends us to tap into all of our talents.
That's good. Well, Pat, we have a lot.
I don't have to say much. Is that pretty clear on that? Okay. I would say I'd imagine that there's probably a lot of ET in our church. I think over the years, we've been very good as a church at getting things done. Things always get done. Fun in the Sun gets done. KFC got done for 55 years, 60 years. We're good at people coming along, willing to help, willing to finish. But I don't know that we've had a lot of the other gifts working in the church. And I can't say for sure because I wasn't here that whole time, but I'll tell you a story. When I came on the LT the very first time, and I was there for a while, and of course my W comes out in the meetings, and there was some surprised looks on people's faces. Like, oh, have you thought about that before? And that's not to say anything about me. I was just trying to work in my gift. And when Mel left, he said, I think our team is healthier than it's ever been. And I don't think it was because of the specific people that were there. I think it was because we had more of the gifts actually working. Mick was there, I was there, gifts that we maybe didn't step into a lot before. And now, I think we had a lot of ET in the past. Now we're leaning heavy on the W because he and I both have that. So we want to come out balanced, and we don't want a team full of the same thing. Like he said that. Like you don't want to hire people that are exactly like you. You want different people, right?
A lot of pastors and church leaders who listen. Any specific encouragement you want to give them as they're leading their teams and their congregations or parishes?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, use this for staffing and hiring. And this is what I mean. Let's say you're trying to hire a youth minister, a person to run youth ministry at your church. So you go out and you say, well, let's find people who are good at youth ministry or have a background in it. The first thing I'd say is, wait. What kind of youth minister do you want? Do you want one that's going to conceive of new programs? They're going to be like inventing and designing programs? Or do you have a good curriculum and you want somebody who's really good at implementing it and recruiting volunteers and making sure it gets done? That has a profound impact on who you should hire. And if you hire somebody who's an all-star youth minister and they come in thinking they're going to design the program or they're going to implement it, so a youth minister is not a youth minister, is not a youth minister. Ask yourself, which letters do you need? Everyone who works in a church should be a minister, right?
Absolutely.
But we minister in different ways. And what a beautiful thing to say, you're a minister, but you might be a minister of hospitality, you might be a minister of thinking new ideas, you might be a minister of getting things done, you know? And but when people are not in there using their geniuses, it's kind of tragic.
Claire? Disagreement? Email me later.
All right, well, I have, first of all, enjoyed the conversation, but secondly, thank you for giving me a chance to read the book. I've taken the assessment, it's been helpful for us, and because of that, I had my whole team take the assessment, and thankfully, all the letters of widget, now that I know it spells widget, all the letters are accounted for on our team, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're winning as a team right now. But any final thoughts you'd like to share before we wrap up today's conversation?
I think churches should use Working Genius to say to people, let us help you discover who God made you to be. So that because this applies whether you're working at home with your family, whether you're working at work, whether you're working at church, anything you're doing that's getting things done, people need to know what that is. And I think it's another great on-ramp for people to say, come in, let us meet you where you are, so that you can become the person God made you to be.
Okay. So I don't know if you caught it, and I mentioned it very briefly, but he said use this both here and in your home and in your other areas of life. One of the things that Steph and Tony said to me was that this actually helped their marriage. Because Steph is an ET, right? She wants to help get things done and she wants to get it done. So she's got her task list, she wants it done. Tony is a WG. So he wants to ask, why are we doing this? What's the best way to do this? And then he wants to galvanize and get people involved in doing whatever it is that they're doing. But he doesn't want to actually finish anything. So Steph gets frustrated with her own husband because she thinks that he just wants to irritate her and doesn't ever finish anything. But once they took this test and she started to realize that that's not a gift that he has, in fact, it's a frustration of his, it helped them see each other in a better teamwork way, right? Becky and I both have T, so we work great. We're both getting things done, right? But I can't ask her deep theological or probing W questions because she doesn't have it. She hates it. She doesn't want to sit and think about the things that I think about. And I want to sit in the car and go, well, this, and this. And she's like, whatever. On the phone. You know what I mean?
I'm with you, Becky. Why don't you come live with me? Fake and go live with Becky.
Okay, moving on. And again, I just want to reiterate that I don't anticipate this is the end-all, be-all of all of our problems. I don't think that, all conflict gets resolved now. This is one tool in our toolbox. It's one tool that we can use to move ourselves forward as a church so we get people in the right places, so they're serving with joy, so they're not burning out, so they're doing the things that give them life, as he said in the beginning. They're putting coffee in their thermos and not in a cup of oatmeal, right? And I do hope, in the future to do this with the ministry team. The denomination is looking into doing it more overall. But my hope is for us to be more productive, more joyful, less frustrated, and alleviate as much of the conflicts that are in our sphere as possible because we have more information. We have more information about each other. And we can thrive in the areas we're strong. And also, we're all in the same vocabulary. We're all using the same vocabulary, other than Mick, because his letters are not the same.
Yeah.
Letters are different.
I talk it is and then ours and.
I am a PC.
So resources, as Tony said, there's a podcast if you want to listen to it. I'm not big into podcasts. I don't have a long drive home, so I don't listen to a lot of them, but there is a Peter Lencioni, the guy who wrote the book, not the Unstuck group, that's the other guy. He has a podcast you could listen to, and the book is actually a very easy and enjoyable read. I read the book. It's not like a handbook. It's a fictional account, kind of like a based on the true story thing. I think it's basically how they came up with this, but like the chapters are 3 pages at a time, so it's actually a really quick, enjoyable read. If you want one, the denomination's willing to buy you one. Tony can get us some, so just let me know. Your thoughts, your time. If you were over by 1 minute, it's So if you need to go, feel free to do so, but I'm interested in what your thoughts are.
That's slow.
Oh.
8:04.
I'm reading a Bruce Langeman book right now that deals, not the same terminology, but kind of the same idea, and I think just taking this and listening to you and to this, I think a big thing a big benefit for us and just understanding this, and I think not just in like leadership roles, but in any time people are working together, I think it's just the understanding, not just of yourself, but of other people, like why does this person frustrate me? Oh, it's because they see things totally different than I do. Like the way they process this, we're going through the same thing, but the way they're processing is completely different than me. So it opens up the door for us to be more gracious and to have patience with people, less opportunity for the enemy to bring division. And I think that's always a good thing. So how it all fits into the plan of the church, I don't know, but I think just understanding that people are different and they see things differently, and God has given them a different way of understanding and processing things than you is good for all of us to understand, because we are different. Some people you get along with, and it's like everything you say is, oh yeah, that's everything is, you just jive, everything is good, and then the next person is like, wow, we're just like not hitting at all. And this, understanding that we need each other, and to give grace and understanding, like, you know what, they see it differently than me. Let's go through this. I think that's good.
I would lay on top of that, Mark, the idea of implementing this into a bunch of leaders. If you're taking followers or worker bees and you're putting this into them, they don't have near as much trouble with what he said about halfway through there. There was times that he had to go into the meeting and just sit on his hands. Just tell yourself, okay, this is not my area. I need to just shut up and let the people that are good. But when you're talking to a bunch of leaders, that is a difficult thing to do. You bring the W and just, okay, we have the idea where we're going now. Somebody else has to do their thing. I think that's a big, like a side note to this, is understanding yourself and understanding when you gotta sit on your, because I'm horrendous at that, sitting on my hands.
I think it's important not to put it on one person, like as we have multiple W's, multiple I's, multiple D's to discern it together, and then of course others can put input in too, but not that it's like going forward, it's like, all right, well, you're the discerner, you're gonna make all the decisions all the time, so it's.
Well, and you can even see that it doesn't necessarily have to be your number one top.
Right.
Like there's people who are trumpeting it. It's a middle of the road thing, so they should be speaking into it. But if you know it's not a strength of yours, you know it's frustrating you, and you know you're not giving good input, sometimes it's good. You know what? I need to shut up.
Yeah, for me, I'm not a T. I am definitely not a T.
Okay.
But it's tough for me to shut up and let the T's do their job and finish the deal.
I thought it was very interesting that he said anyone can lead a team.
It is.
Yeah.
That goes against a lot of, like the DISC, like different types of assessments.
Gives me hope.
And you think about the people that God chose all through history to do certain things, to do big exploits, and to lead people. It's like they weren't always the ones you would look at and say, usually weren't the ones that you looked at and said, no, there's a leader. There's some, they have all the leadership gifts or whatever. A lot of times it was, it was somebody that nobody would have ever said, hey, why don't you take this? People would have laughed.
So God can be.
Yeah. So.
But he said, surrounding yourself with the areas where you're weak. I think about Moses and Jethro. Jethro came along and said, dude.
I think of Aaron.
Yeah. Stop.
I think it's easier to, at least for me, pick out my strengths. I can see how it'd be very helpful though to know where your weakness is.
Yes.
And I know Tyler even said that that's one thing he could not have pinpointed until he took the test, that was why it frustrated him, or like what frustrated him.
And I'll say for me, I agree with Tyler. It was more beneficial to learn my weaknesses. Because nobody wants to admit they're not good at discerning things, right? Who wants to admit that I'm terrible at that? No, I get figured it out. No, I can't. And it's not that I never can.
Right.
Right, but realistically, it's good to get help.
Are we gonna go around and share?
You can, yeah, that's a good idea.
First.
You sent me the map already. So.
Oh, this is the team map.
Yeah.
Oh, too bad we can't put it up here.
Oh.
Oh, we have them all. Look at that. We have a lot of teams.
I was gonna say we have a lot.
Let Becky finish it.
Yeah, she's the key. Let her tee herself.
Found it out.
Tee it up, Becky.
Yeah, but he's in love land looking at that map now. He's just going out.
I'm already gone.
W took over.
It's like, Kate, really? You wanna like talk about it?
Wow. Scott show up on the list?
Scott, yeah, Scott and Warren are there. I printed theirs.
Oh, you don't have this one?
Yes, it's, scroll down. There's 3 pages. Oh, it didn't show up on that.
I was thinking, I think there was a little cursor.
All right, so there's Scott and
Oh, I
Warren.
printed, but not.
Scott is not, oh, that's Warren. I was like, Scott's not a G, what happened? Scott, you did it wrong.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I didn't get my test, and I marked myself what I thought it was. 1, 2, 3 through 6. 1 through 6. I got exactly what I thought.
Oh, wow.
Dead on. I was like, oh wow. WI, I thought it was gonna be last for me.
Does mix in Spanish?
No, there it is.
No, it's in English.
Yeah, there we go. And I knew that about Mick before he took the test. I could have told you.
Well, George, you and Bruce should not work together.
No, we should work.
Well, you need people in the middle.
No.
Looks like Jeff and I are gonna be doing the work.
There was another one. Mark Weaver has some deep.
Is it Falcon? Yeah,
But there's a lot. If you look at this sheet, look at all the ones that don't have D. It's a frustration. Just about everybody else.
What's the majority? T's.
Majority, everyone has T. There's very few T frustrations. Mark Weaver and Mike.
Wow, there's
Don't
a
like
lot
to
of
finish
T's.
Wow.
Slackers, that's us.
That surprised me, but I didn't think.
Mark, you and I.
That's my wife. There's a lot of things in my house that are undone for years. It's like, when are you gonna finish this?
See, that's why it was
I'll get
hard
to it.
for me to guide him, because at home, I could take forever and be like 50 times nagging. But if it's something like at church,
But it's about
we're
the
gonna do it.
priorities.
Yes.
So
It's the
sometimes
priorities.
it was hard to answer that, because it depended what area you were talking about.
Work.
But aren't we all like that? It's
From
what
your
we enjoy
perspective,
doing.
I probably would have answered it from how he is at home.
Well, did you go, I think you went in the middle on that, didn't you? Because that's what I said.
I did whatever you said. dear.
Yeah. Because there was, I don't know if that was the one I said, well, at home, it would be that way, complete no, yeah, no on that. I said, but on other things like church and whatnot, boy, it's not always easy to answer these questions.
That's yours.
So then maybe he needs a new job.
Well, but aren't we all like that? I mean, really, even if it's your gift, if it's your gift, but in an area that you don't necessarily enjoy, it's hard to use that gift. Does that make sense?
Do you feel like the eye is accurate for you? Because there's not many eyes in the.
Oh, yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole, like, it goes all the way back to the race car thing. I didn't wanna drive somebody else's race car, so we built our own.
Were there any other eyes that were green?
Yeah, one. Miguel.
Vicky!
Miguel.
Vicky can come up with ideas all day, and then I can say, you two go off somewhere.
My mom would be an eye. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, your mother is an eye.
I am not.
Can you tell me what
I
it is?
I mean, I wish I
I
could.
think I thought a W would
It'd be interesting before you wives do it, your husbands take it off.
Or an idea.
I'm gonna guess that Jen's not a T.
I think we get that from people. So that's the W. Is the policy.
Ladies, my apologies again. I would really like to get, if you are interested in, like, hey, this is great, I've met this, it's good for our marriage too. I will talk to Tony and get you a test. So just let me know. And I would recommend, if you're gonna do that, have your husband sit next to you when you take. You have to have him there because you can't answer the questions, so.
He'll just say no to everything.
All right, I'll come over
Yeah, you
too.
will.
I'll come over and
Yeah, you
correct
will.
it. Get some more D's over there, then. Any other questions? I don't wanna keep you guys.
So did that other screen refresh yet? But I didn't know if it fell in place or not.
I could make copies of this and we could send them
Yeah, I
out
didn't
in
know
your
if it fell in,
mailbox.
that's just.
Yeah, I'll make copies and put them in your mailbox. Your mom's out.
Oh, so,
That's well.
no.
I think that part. We should just be a double I.
Double I. Well, I would be a double W, so yeah. Yeah.
Actually, no, I know, she's an IT. She does not like unfinished stuff.
Laura's at that first.
Yeah, I thought that earlier. Did you? Okay,
So a question, what's the unique pairing about? So it says your unique pairing, it has like the flip of your letters. So like your letters and then like the flip.
Oh, well, they're both the same. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what order they're in.
Okay.
I would just have more W than T.
Right.
But someone else might have more T than W.
Yeah.
But
So it's just giving the strengths and weaknesses
So-
for either of those letters.
here, let me read this to you. I think Mike would find this interesting. So, as a result of the divergence between wonder and tenacity, another effect that are on opposite ends of the spectrum, they often find themselves experiencing and projecting angst in the middle of a project, feeling almost an overwhelming need to slow down and ask questions that might alleviate potential problems. That reads my mail because I want to have every domino.
We hear that
in
at every
place.
meeting, Bruce.
Every meeting. I want every domino in place before we knock the first one over. And meanwhile, he's sitting there going, "No, I want to float down the river in my boat and just bounce around." No. We got to have a plan before we go. You know what I'm saying? So
The
you can
plan is
see.
to float down the river and bounce
That's
around.
a terrible plan. Where are my discerners? That's a terrible plan. But you can see. So I've often said this. I said to Mike, not to Mike, to somebody else about Mike when we were racing. I could come off the racetrack. I go out on the racetrack. I feel what the car is doing. I come off the racetrack and I could tell you what it needed to do. But I had no idea how to make the car do what it needed to do. And I was super frustrated. And I was probably a terrible deer. How were you ever around me?
There was times.
Yeah. So it's just interesting how you can even look back on your life and say, oh my goodness, that's me. Oh my goodness, that's me. And here, they dislike, this is me, they dislike unclear standards and directions or expectations that suddenly change. Right? Every time he'd call me in the truck, I had my day laid out, I knew what was happening when I got home. He would call me at 2:30. Hey, I got another load for you. No, you don't. No, my day's
Not on my schedule.
No, that wasn't, 2 o'clock in the afternoon was not the problem, it was 10 o'clock in the morning. If I touched your schedule at 10 o'clock in the morning, well, it wouldn't affect 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you were still bent out of shape.
I don't like clear standards, the standards are changed. And it wasn't that I was unhappy at having more work, I was. But I already had my day planned out, my task list, and now this is gonna affect my checking off my finishing of all my tasks. Right? And he's like, hey, more work, let's do it, you know? Can't say no to anybody. But he also comes from a place where, if I may be frank, back in the day, Faye talks about it, they didn't have a lot of money. So when there was work, you took it. I won't say I never was in that position, but I haven't been in that position for a long, long time, and I've kind of forgotten about it sometimes. So for him, talk about experiences, talk about personality, and they all go into it. Once you understand that, if you'd have known this about me, maybe we could have avoided some of it. Or you could have at least called me up and said, I'm going to destroy your tea right now.
He wouldn't
And
have
I'd have
called
been,
you.
okay.
We'd have never had the first conversation had I known what you were gonna.
Right.
No, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding.
So anyway, yeah, I will get this for you and put it in your mailboxes. And you can expect some of you for me to be calling you.
So you're looking to get more of the church to do it?
I want the leaders to do it now. I would like to take the ministry team leaders through it at some point so that they can understand it as they put teams together. You know, so one of my thoughts is in the future, because George isn't gonna live forever as much as I'd like him to, we would like to have a finance team. You know, we need guys that can, more than one guy, is not gonna take on probably what George takes on, or Jordan Beth, I should say. So, it'd be good to have a team of guys, a finance team, and it'd be nice to have as many of these gifts on there as possible. If we have a children's ministry team, I would love to have you and toddlers church and nursery and children's Sunday school on a team, where you guys are banging out ideas and you're pushing stuff forward with some guidance from the elders. But you guys have as many of those gifts as possible on that team so that you can not be frustrated and enjoy what you're doing with the children. You know what I mean? That makes sense. Get Kate her check-in system when you get an app that works. Good, good. All right. So none of you should ever be angry with me again. Now that you know it. Yes. Yeah. And try to get help.
Why should we? You're a child of the king.
Thank you for coming. I really